Oh my goodness, you caught me taking a sip of water.
Solid clips.
Did you like the clips?
It's good clips.
What a
there.
catastrophe.
There was a nice one of Gelu's partner one-shotting someone. A nice one of Bicmex being one-shot. I think Maro was included in one of those, I think.
Was I?
You being, wasn't it you being death-bolted
I
by
go
a wild
one-shot.
pepper?
Okay, why is everyone so upset about one-shots? Like, do you guys not remember the base of WoW PvP, which was back in the day, you saw on maps a Tauren warrior with some big two-hand axe just smothering a gnome in
This is why
one
classic
blow.
WoW is better.
Some nice,
This is
nice
what we're here
download from Rookie.
The
We want
PvP
the one
experience
shot.
classic, so good.
Exactly. That's what we're aiming for.
I think the biggest thing going into Shadowlands that I want to bring up is PvP scaling. Oh, well, the removal of PvP scaling, I should say. What do you think about that? I mean, I'll give a quick... My opinion is that, right now, PvP scaling, while it's hard to understand, obviously benefits people with less gear. But, on the other hand to that, it's kind of fixed in Shadowlands because there's a PvP vendor, which obviously there wasn't in BFA. So, what do you three think of the removal of PvP scaling?
I mean, I think
it's a
overall
good
it's
thing.
like
You go
it's a
ahead.
good thing,
You
yeah,
start.
true. No,
Yeah,
you can
go
go
on,
ahead, Maro.
No, you can start. It's all good.
Yeah,
Are you
go
sure?
on a bit, mate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think generally
Don't be
it's like
shy.
a good thing. Maybe Gelu can start. No, but like, I think if it was implemented in the right way, it could be like a great thing. Just to like, make it so the gap between super high-end PvPers that have been playing the game for a long time and like a fresh alt isn't that big, especially because later on into the expansion, each leap of raid content or like each patch, your HP almost doubled. Like we went from 110k to like 250k to like 340k. Now we had like 600k. So like the actual like gap of stats became so large from each patch. I think it would be like impossible to just start getting gear in the first place, or like it's actually impossible to even do any form of PvP whatsoever. I think that's why they had to have some sort of scaling in the first place. But I mean, if they fix that in Shadowlands and maybe just not make the gear scale so insanely hard after each tier, I think that's just like the biggest problem. I don't think like the PvP scaling shouldn't be necessary to like exist in the game. It's just like
I feel like now though it's going to cause a problem with PvE gear, right? I mean, you take me for example, right? I'll come out of the raid fully mythic geared, and I'll come up against another rogue that has the honor vendor gear, and obviously I'm going to be
Did it help you?
level higher. I mean,
unless he's a better player.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying, is obviously with the removal of this, we're going to go back to the days where I'm sure most of you played Cataclysm. You would have played versus a Warlock Rogue that had double legendaries, right? They were so far out geared that, without any PvP scaling, it was because their gear was so much better, they had such a big advantage of you. Are you not worried about that?
But I think that was due to the effects of the items. Yeah, that's like the same thing as trinkets, right? The reason why they were so good wasn't the stats or like the items, it was more the effects of these items. I mean, that's like affiliate. I mean, but yeah, I think overall PvP scaling was obviously like maybe the idea is a good thing, but it just didn't really work out. I think there was too many issues. Like even late in the expansion, people discovered so many issues with it that kind of didn't work out the way it like was supposed to work out. I personally liked the Legion gearing system. I don't think a lot of people liked it, but I think it was really good for at least for competitive PvP. I think Shadowlands could be really good in terms of gearing. Having a PvP vendor back is obviously really good. Also, the changes they made, having different stats, is something that will obviously help. And I generally hope that you don't have to PvE as much as you did in BFA, which I think is almost like a given at this point. I think you are not going to have to PvE as much, but ultimately, obviously, the best PvP gear, in my opinion, should come from PvP, and the best PvE gear from PvE.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that now you only have one weekly chest in a sense. And yes, you can get more options from going to the raid and going to Mythic Plus. You don't feel like, oh, I didn't do a weekly key this week, so now I'm not going to get my weekly loot. Like, you know, you can just PvP now and get that. So that should definitely help. And like you can see, I guess that Blizzard is trying to make somewhat of an effort to help PvPers in that sense. But I was kind of curious, like, it seems like every expansion we get like an introduction and a removal of a system. You know, we go from like Conquest, and then we go from like PvP gear, and then no longer, and then, you know, or like a PvP gear vendor, and then that gets removed. And then we get, you know, we have Resilience, we have Verse. Like, where for you guys do you sit in terms of like, what is your most preferred system?
And the Warlord system was good, where you could just buy it.
Yeah, I think they
with gold, you just buy it.
Yeah, just buy it straight up.
And I think
the
most
set
people
bonuses on trinkets
as well. But
you start to farm.
I think most people like it.
I mean, I think in MOP it was like fun to farm, but I mean back then in MOP I was like 10 years old, so I don't know if it was like actually fun, or because like games are just generally fun when like you're 10. But
for Warlords of Draenor, didn't you have to farm Conquest? Didn't you have to farm like 28k Conquest?
Yeah, it was a Conquest gap, and then you could buy items, I believe.
Yeah, but I think the Honor Gear was like super easy to get, and it had like in PvP it was like the same as the Heroic Raid or something.
Yeah.
And then the if you got the Conquest Gear, it was like the same as the Mythic Raid.
You also had like this trinket bonus involved, but like I said earlier, I personally like the Legion gearing system a lot, just because it was so
pure eye level,
easy
right?
to play. Yeah,
I mean, exactly. Everything so easy to understand as well. You could like do all forms of content.
Yeah, but in my opinion, it was just good.
Yeah, I think now it's like I don't even mind to do one mythic dungeon each week. Like I'm just so used to it. I've been doing it for every single week since like 2016. It's like 4 years straight. I've just been doing like one mythic plus. So I think I'm just like used to it. But maybe that's just Stockholm syndrome. I'm not really too sure.
Careful you don't get turned into a PvEer, dude. You'll come to the dark side.
Yeah,
I think it becomes a bit crazy.
Mythic. I guess I'm kind of have to. It's just the gear, man.
I think one weekly key is like one thing, but doing it on like 7 characters, if you want to like play a lot of characters, is like too much in my opinion. I personally think that, like I said, I like the Legion system. It was very easy. Everyone could play. You had stat templates. People were disadvantaged because they had like different gear sets, so from different contents. I think obviously from like an MMO point of view, people disliked it. I think there's no, like in my mind, there's no doubt from like a competitive point of view, it was by far the best gearing system there's ever been. But I obviously understand that people see the game as an MMO, and they would rather have like a system where they can change their gear a bit more and change their stats and play around with different builds. But yeah, I like that one a lot. Obviously MOP, VOD was really good. But yeah, other than that, I think BFA wasn't that good, to be honest.
Nah, I mean BFA didn't even like have any form of scaling whatsoever. It was only the like hidden scaling, but nothing else. Just here's some gear, just take the best ones. That's like kind of. I guess another good thing with the Legion one is like it just made PvP balancing a whole lot easier, because they can just change the templates.
Drestagath or any of these other.
Or like, I mean, if one class is like really underpowered, you can just make it so, the template, now you have 14% mastery instead of like 9% mastery or something. Yeah. Instead of like actually having to like fix
though. It wasn't listed
individual
anywhere.
Spell. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could just go into a skirmish and take a screenshot. That's like, it's good. I suppose
I definitely feel.
I like being able to choose gear. Like I like having different stats and like, okay, I want to play a mastery build or whatever. The same with reforging and MOP. Like reforge your gear and like different play styles and stuff. I don't really like the Legion system.
What do you think is a good like midpoint then? Because like personally, I like being able to at least customize some of my stats. For even if my gear isn't better, like even if my gear isn't on the same level, I like how one character can play something completely different to the same class, and they'll play slightly differently in the arena. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, right, Gelu, of just obviously haste stacking, mastery stacking, stuff like that. I think the big problem comes in is like trinkets, right? And that's what I'm worried about going into Castle Nathria or Shadowlands.
Yeah.
And I think you've all been playing, Shadowlands beta, and you've seen some of the trinkets. Obviously, I don't know. Anyone want to pipe up on that? What do you think about these PvE trinkets that you have to farm?
Oh boy. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully they're gonna get nerfed. I saw one post on Reddit like 3 weeks ago. I think D Machine, he said something that they're looking into fixing all of the trinkets for PvP. So hopefully something will be made. And I think I saw a tweet as well that they're gonna do something, or it was something along the lines of like, oh, our development cycle, we always take PvPers, thoughts and prayers into consideration, but it's like our last priority, and then we just deal with it later, kind of.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe, hopefully, until the game comes out, I guess we just have to pray at this point.
What do you think, Gallimaro?
I mean, they need to just increase the the Versa bonus on the PvP trinkets, so you just get like 1 banged if you don't wear them, I think. That's like the answer to it.
Oh, so you think making
the
PvP ones just completely mandatory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make the PvP ones, so like if you don't have them, you have literally zero Versa or something.
They could really juice up the trinkets because it's only going to be PvPers that use them. And so really juice them up, but then base this, I guess, like the tuning of PvP around the fact that everyone's going to guaranteed have them. I think that's probably a good way to do it, right?
Because right now you have like 20%, but I think it's only really, really low amount of stats that you get.
Yeah, I think obviously the worry is that the PvP trinkets become mandatory in PvE, which is obviously the reverse. I mean, that's what's happened in.
But you lock it to. You lock it to PvP, surely, so you'd be like this. This effect only occurs in.
Yeah. I mean, if you do
right?
That would make sense.
Yeah, I do think like badge was a bad thing though. The fact that it was like mandatory for red pallies and fire mages.
Yeah, fire mages had to have a badge, even if it was your base level.
Even Desert Warlock, I think, had them.
Yeah.
It was like fire mage, Desert Warlock, and red pallies.
Yeah. The other big thing going into Shadowlands is the unpruning, as our Lord Helinka has, promised. What do you think? Do you think it's made a big difference? I mean, obviously, you've all played Shadowlands quite a lot. Do you think it's made a big difference having some of, the other spells that you had pruned away from you? Has it made a big difference to you in the arena?
I mean, as a hunter, I'm literally getting like 4 spells that can highly impact the game, so I'm very happy.
Yeah. What do you think, Mr. Mages?
No.
I think it depends.
I mean, Mages actually got nothing. I'm so sad. I'm so sorry.
I mean, obviously,
I'm like chilling over here.
The addition of getting like a Fire Blast as a Frost Mage and Arcane Mage, I mean, it's nice to get like a Grounding or something, or like a Spell Reflect or something. I guess Spell Reflect doesn't really work that way anymore, but I mean, that's obviously nice. And also the addition of Altered Time is nice, but at the same time, they removed Temp for like 2 out of 3 specs, and like getting Arcane Explosion as Frost or Fire, I don't think it's going to have a big impact on the game. But overall, I mean, giving spells back is obviously a step in the right direction. I just think they should bring. I don't think it's enough. I mean, people have been obviously this topic always comes up when we talk about Deep Freeze. I think all the mage players want Deep Freeze back. I think they could implement that really easy, but obviously they would probably like take too long to go into detail with that. But I think bringing spells back is definitely a good thing for a lot of classes. I just don't think it's like, I don't know, I just think it's going to end up being like a little bit of a fiesta if like some specs or some classes get a lot of spells back and some classes don't barely get any that have any impact.
I think it depends on the type of spell as well, right? Like some spells are way more, like you say, getting Fire Blast as a Frost Mage isn't really that pivotal, but I don't know. Getting something like Cyclone on a Druid is huge because that's just freed up a whole PvP talent for you, hasn't it? So
yeah, of course.
The only good one for Mage is Frostbolt for Fire. That's about it that I noticed.
Oh, you get Mirror Image.
You have as slow as Fire now.
What do you get Mirror Image? Because that's
I wonder, is Mirror Images bugged? Because they have like 2,000 HP, but they get one shot. They die to AoE.
Yeah, that's the point. Right? The first 3 hits that you take go to your images. Yeah. And then they die.
Oh, okay.
Because you get like a 20% more. It's like the tank trinket, right?
I mean, I guess. Oh yeah, I see now. Okay, never mind. I thought they were like bugged. I was like, what is happening? He's just dying instantly.
It's like a damage function. Okay, then the last thing about Shadowlands is covenants. Obviously, how on earth do you think covenants are going to factor into PvP? I mean, right now, you're basically having to understand Yeah, a lot of PvP is about understanding, what it is you're playing against. Do you think there's going to be some covenants that sneak in under the radar that no one's used? Like, nobody understands what they do. Do you think that's like a thing or not?
I think as a hunter, yes, for sure. There's like 3 of them that are like maybe decent, but the only problem is like they're not spec specific. So for example, for as survival, it's kind of mandatory to go vent there. You can't really go anything else. Nothing else really synergizes at all. But then if you're marksmanship, you can literally go like all 4. Yeah. So the fact that they're not spec specific, I think as from a PvPer, it's going to be good on the enemy team because you know what they're going to pick just by looking at these classes. You know, once the meta actually develops, you can just, what they are going to play. But as a player, it's going to feel awful. Like the fact that you can't play your other DPS spec or healing spec is, it's the wrong covenant for you.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest risk. Yeah. I think the biggest risk is them like being too locked and too hard to actually unlock or too hard to swap. So like I actually don't think that's going to be a problem for like tournament play, but just for ladder play, which obviously is like the overall maybe most important part, I think they have too much of an impact right now. Like maybe they need to be nerfed for PvP or something, so you're not going to play with that big of a disadvantage. But like the way I felt is that depending on the class or spec you play, you need to run a certain covenant. You need to run like a certain one of these 3 people that you choose. These soulbind path or whatever. I don't know how you call it.
Yeah, soulbinds. Yeah.
And it's just like it's too. Like it's too much. Like you would want to swap that for every single matchup you play, and that's like obviously a bad thing because that just means they have so much impact, and you're never gonna be able to balance that. And
so, do you think that's going to become like another RNG factor? Like, for example, like Spike causes now, right? In that people have to change gear. You're basically having to weigh up. What could this person possibly be playing? Do you think it's that big of an impact?
Yeah, of course. I know, for example, like I was told maybe they changed it at this point that for Rasta Shamans, like changing between Necrolord and Benthium, one makes you basically completely immortal, the other one makes you have like a lot of offensive abilities and being able to help your team offensively. But the one that makes you immortal, like I would face a Shaman, I would know, okay, he's playing this covenant, okay, let's just go on him. It's gonna be so easy to kill him, and that's just like a bad thing. The other one is completely immortal because he chose a different one. I think that just has too much impact on every matchup, and that's probably just gonna make it worse. That's why I said maybe the right thing is to just nerf them a lot in PvP, but then again, that's kind of like ruining the whole.
Yeah, you miss out on a whole
MMO
feature.
part. Yeah, you're missing out on a feature that's like a main feature of an expansion. But I just don't think it has a place in competitive PvP. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
I think a lot of them are going to be very hard to even nerf because some of them don't even do damage. A lot of them are just utility or they change something about your spec. For example, the Kyrian spell that lets you see through walls as a hunter. Like how I guess you have to like increase the cooldown or something. There's like nothing about. Maybe you can change the radius, but that would be, I don't know, a little bit.
Should you pick them in the starting room or something?
I mean, you should be able to just pick them as a talent. I don't know, but I don't think
it's
an
issue.
That.
If you have to pick them in the starting room, then don't you think it's unnecessarily annoying to have to think? Okay, you get into the arena, you then have to pick all your talents, change all your gear, change all your honor talents. Change all your covenants and change your soulbind. What's the
and your legendary and your conduits?
It's like a minute, right? Like,
so do you think
make like a COD loadout?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a COD local.
Make some pre-made loadouts.
I mean, there's probably gonna be some like add-on for it because there's already one with your Azerites. It's called the Azerite Set Essence Manager, whatever. Where you can like just click on a button. You can like go from Conflict Major to Flame Major, Reaping Major.
I like that though. Actually, what Gilly said, like that kind of loadout system, because then you could even implement a gulag, and the first 2 people that die, they have to fight each other. And one of them reses back into the arena. We can improve the whole system. Now, I think there's definitely issues.
Shadow
with
just got buffed.
I think there's definitely an issue with the system, no matter how you look at it. If you're allowed to swap, when you get into the arena, then you're going to have to, like you say, Bastu, you're going to have to swap legendary conduits, soulbinds, and covenants, right? You're also going to need to kind of mind game, figure out what your opponent might be choosing in terms of those things. But then if you restrict people and say, okay, well, you're locked into whatever covenant, soulbind stuff that you have, well, then that also poses challenges, because then you don't have that fluidity to counterpick. But then if they weaken the system as well, you're missing out on a whole feature. So I think that there's definitely issues no matter what you go for, you know?
Don't think it's an easy decision. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I just wanted to say that it's like, I mean, it could be a good way to implement, APM mattering a lot in the starting room as well. They do that.
APM mattering in the starting room.
Yeah.
Do you want to add that as another?
Mechanically, gift players can swap their gear really quick.
I'm 400 APM, so I win this round. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up most of the stuff to talk about on Shadowlands. Hopefully, Shadowlands will work out well for PvP. I guess we will just remains to be seen. Hopefully, the trinkets get changed dramatically.
Hopefully,
maybe some nice PvP set bonuses added. But yeah,
I quite like skulking people.
Oh, do you?
It's so much fun, actually.
Yeah.
Especially the
skulking. You just skulk a man, he's just dead.
Yeah, but it's not so much fun when it gets done to you, right? Your poor mage, it's just on the floor.
Skulk will be skull. I don't play mage anymore. I'm a real hunter.
Yeah.
Oh shit, have you? Oh yeah, you have. True. You asked me a bunch of questions. I remember now.
Yeah.
Is there like
that's gonna be your new main?
It's kind of like wrap it up. Is there like one thing that you guys are looking forward to in Shadowlands in terms of PvP? Like Maro, starting with you and then going across.
I mean, definitely. I think the pace looks better. Like, obviously, pace was a big issue in BFA. In addition to a lot of other things, but I think like maybe having a faster game pace again, that would already make the game much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Geller?
This sounds like Psycho tier, but I really want them to just add more honor levels so I can farm more BGs.
Oh my god.
I'm like on a level 600 something right now, and I've got no rewards.
You know what? They're not going to take anything else from the whole of this show. They're just going to do that. You know it. They're just going to do that.
Get some more mounts.
Add more mounts.
What do you think, Bicmex?
I mean, I'm just waiting for the day that they're going to make the PvP set bonus just like 1000% HP, 1000% damage. Instead of like trying to nerf, like, because I did see one tweet, Blizzard's like, oh, we try to fix this by nerfing this trinket by like 73% or something. I mean, when they can just flat out just remove them from the game. I think that would be like a way easier and simpler option, and everyone else would be happy.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, having a chat with us about Shadowlands. Maybe you can have one more go at winning a nice HyperX microphone.
I'm gonna spam the chat right now. Let's go.
I know. Maro's really looking for. Maro really wants one of these mics, man.
I mean, the GTX one is not working too well, so. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you guys for having us, or me. And
that's all right, man. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Peace, guys.